Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Are we going to be renaming the Gaza Strip the MAGA Strip? Got some clarification from the White House today, but before we get to any of that, all kidding aside, my friends, this isn't a joke. This is not a joke what I'm about to tell you. The Democrats in the Washington state legislature hate you and hate your children. They think your children are props for them to become social justice warriors, little activists, little Hamasniks, little radicals. They believe they know what is best for your child better than you. They believe your children are their property. Remind them of that the next time they bring up slavery. Now, every single day, I always give you the Washington Legislative Hotline, and I'm going to give it to you again today. And I know sometimes you're sitting in your car and you're going, well, somebody else will call. Not today. Today, I need you to call. I really need you to call. Let me tell you what's going on. The Democratic-controlled Washington State Senate just passed 5181. 5181 is the new bill they have to undermine the Parental Bill of Rights, which you guys worked so hard to pass last year through Let's Go Washington. Let's go back in time for a minute. Democrats have been hiding what they've been doing to your kids for years. And now you have medical clinics in schools, in the Seattle School District and elsewhere, where your kid can walk in and they can say, hey, you want an abortion? Hey, you want trans surgery? Hey, you want hormones? You want any of that kind of stuff? And they don't have to tell you anything about it. Nothing at all. How many times have I brought up the gender card that a kid brought to me in my synagogue that he brought home from his pediatrician's office, which has a little box at the bottom that says, do you want us to tell your parents or do you want us not to tell your parents? The fact that me and my wife, when we want medical information on our kids when they are over 13 years old, and we have to get their permission to get their medical information, is insane. The Democrats want to be able to have your kids run away from home, to change their gender, to get an abortion, whatever the case may be, because they've passed bills that made it so that your kid can run away from home and be taken care of by the Democrats. Because they've done such a bang-up job with the homeless population. They've done such a bang-up job with the child foster care population, haven't they now? This is what's going on. So today they passed 5181. You spent all that time collecting signatures to get the Parents' Bill of Rights into an initiative to get it on the ballot. And what happens is, in this process, the ballot, the initiative, goes before the legislature, before it goes on the ballot, and the legislature can decide whether or not to pass it. Now, last year, we were all ecstatic because they passed it. But right afterwards, Chris Rakedahl, the superintendent of public instruction, goes, no, I don't feel like enforcing it. So there was a lawsuit, which just settled last week, where he was forced to actually enforce it. And the Attorney General's office was working on it, and our friend Pete Serrano was working on it, and he had to enforce it. But you know why he didn't care? Because he knew the Washington State Legislature was going to undermine it. And what the Washington State Legislature knew, the Democrats knew, is that if they pass this thing in the legislature, they can always amend it later. So what they're doing is Senate Bill 5181 is going to take away, strip away all the rights they granted you. So that way, all the rights they had taken away from you in the first place. So that way, they can undermine your relationship with their kids. That way, you won't know what's going on with your kids in public schools. Every single Democrat voted to strip away your parental rights. Every single one in the Washington State Senate. So here's what I need you to do, because every single one voted to strip away your parental rights. I need you to call the Washington State Legislative Hotline, 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And say no to Senate Bill 5181. And the reason you're going to say, Ari, why are we doing this after it already passed? Because there's also a House bill there's a companion bill in the House, which is moving along as well. Which means if you blow up the phone lines about this one, telling them how angry you are, be nice to the people on the phone, be nice to the people on the phone, be nice to the people on the phone. You say, I will never vote for anybody who passed this ever again, and tell our friends in the Washington House the same thing, they'll know exactly which one you're talking about. So you call 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000 and say no. Say no to Senate Bill 5181. You say that these Democrats are not in charge of my children. I'm in charge of my children. Would you like to know the senators that voted for this? All the Democrats? Alvarado, Bateman, Chapman, Cleveland, Conway, Cortez, Dingra, Frame, Hansen, Hasegawa, Kaufman, Krishnadasan, Leas, Levelet, Lovick, Nobles, Orwell, Peterson, Ramos, Richelli, Robinson, Saldana, Solomon, Schumacher, Slatter, Stanford, Trudeau, Valdez, Wellman, Wilson. Every single Republican voted against it. Every single Democrat voted for it because they want to strip away your parental rights. Every single Democrat does. And this is coming up in the House. I need you to melt the phone lines today and say you reject this nonsense. You reject Senate Bill 5181. 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And when you're on the phone with them, you say you reject the House companion bill and you want them to log that as well. This is insane that they think they can be in charge of your kids better than you because they've done such a bang-up job with everything here in Washington. You need to call them. You need to melt the phone lines. You need to make sure they hear you loud and clear, even if you take a break from listening to my show for 10 seconds to make that call. You need to call them right now because this is absolutely nuts. Let's not forget, the Democrats are the same ones who don't care about kids at all. In fact, they care more about criminals, as we've seen by the different legislation they're trying to pass, which is going to give criminals a chance to be resentenced by a judge and released by a judge. They're doing everything they can to restrict your right to own a firearm, but reducing any criminal who's going to get caught with a firearm. Meanwhile, this is legislation we've been talking about for a long, long time. So this Keep Families Together Act, which the Democrats passed and some Republicans signed on to it too before they realized what it was, is not letting anybody take the kids out of the house of drug addicts. And what it's leading to is because kids are in these homes, they see these things, they see these drugs, they think it's candy, they're ingesting them or they're touching them, like fentanyl, which can be deadly to the touch. And what's happening is they're dying. Well, we had another incident just this week, and Democrats still refuse to do anything about this awful legislation. KERM has a story for us.
In other news, medics rushed to the scene in Spokane Valley where a 2-year-old was possibly overdosing on fentanyl.
It happened on Saturday night at a hotel along North Argonne. The Spokane County Sheriff's Office released these pictures from the scene today. They say when they arrived, they found a woman with a lifeless child in her arms and the room littered with drug paraphernalia. Authorities say a man also tried to leave the scene. The 24-year-old woman said she had been sleeping and woke up to find the child holding a spoon. Officers say she admitted she had used that spoon to ingest fentanyl.
She told authorities that she gave that child 2 doses of Narcan and the toddler was rushed to the hospital and that last report was in stable condition. Both a man and woman were booked on a variety of charges.
It's insane. And Democrats want this to go forward. They want to make sure that these kids are not taken out of the house. Now, there is some good news. The Senate just passed Senator Braun's common sense legislation, Senate Bill 5071, to add fentanyl to child endangerment laws by a 42-7 vote. Who are these 7 morons that voted against this? This legislation passed the Senate last year, but was blocked by House Democrats who wouldn't even give it a hearing. Since then, dozens of toddlers in Washington state have overdosed on fentanyl and died. Now, the Washington House Democrats had a second chance to do the right thing, and most of them did. But once again, who voted against this? Wilson, Saldana, Frame, Hasegawa, Nobles, Trudeau, and Kaufman. Everybody else voted yes on this, and you should too. You can call the Washington State Legislative Hotline and say that you support Senate Bill 5071. That's Senate Bill 5071 and tell them that you support it, because this stuff isn't going to stop. Now, meanwhile, other crazy bills. This one, young Zach found for me. So this is Senate Bill 5486. And before you call me a bigot, let me finish making my case. Let me do that first. Mike's giggling already because he's pretty sure he knows exactly which one he's talking about. So, Senate Bill 5486 requires movie theaters to provide closed captioning for movie screenings and sets fines for failures to comply. Okay, can we back up a second here? Number one, why am I against this bill? Ari, you hate deaf people. No, I don't hate deaf people. I just hate that they can't listen to my show. I'm sorry, bad joke. Okay. Anyway, here's the thing. You can always watch it with captions on social media platforms like Rumble, Facebook, and X. Now, here's the thing, my friends. You can go to movies that have closed captioning. AMC has those options on their website. Regal has those options on their website. Here's something else. Do you know that when I was a kid, I had a friend who was deaf? And every month, there was a day I wanted to go to his house specifically because he would get new movie releases with closed captioning before we had all the technology we have now. And he would get them long before they were available to us. They had just left theaters or they were still in theaters, but they would come to his house. It was like Netflix before there was Netflix, but for deaf people. Now, the good news was these were regular movies. So if I could deal with the subtitles, I could watch them at his house. Now, I did some looking when young Zach gave me this yesterday. I did some searching. Do you know how many websites there are that do this now? So you can stay at home, watch something on closed captioning, and not have to go to the movie theaters, and not have to pay the movie theater prices, and save a bunch of money. So what are you guys doing with this stupidity? Let's be real. Mike, how rare is it, or how often is it, I should say, that you and I say, this movie you really need to see in theaters?
Not often.
Not often. It's rare. And I understand if a deaf kid wants to go see Star Wars, he wants to hear the movie, he wants to read the captions and know what's going on and see it on the big screen. I totally get that. I understand that. But at the same time, you are able to get these things at your home, and movie theaters already do this. But a bunch of local news outlets picked up this story, went around interviewing small movie theater owners, who, by the way, I can't believe they still exist anymore. And what's happening is they're saying, well, we do it, but nobody comes to those screenings. So the problem is, while we do it, now we have to do it, and nobody comes to those screenings. They also say they get no complaints. Nobody bothers to complain about this because the deaf community has so many advantages right now that the stuff gets sent totally to their houses. What would you rather do? Pay the, let's see, $20 a person for the movie, plus the popcorn, plus everything else? No. Plus the popcorn, plus the other food. No, of course not. So, anyway, this is a dumb bill that they are doing just to virtue signal. Who's on this? Oh, Dingra, Nobles, Trudeau, the same people on this stupid bill. How much longer are movie theaters even going to be on business? But this is what you're wasting your time on? This is what you're doing? Yeah, I got a couple of other ones here. Here's one here. House Bill 1196 redefines what constitutes an infamous crime, the conviction of which result in the revocation of voting rights to include only state crimes punishable by death. So if you rape somebody on a felony charge, you still get to vote. Oh, that sounds fair. Removes provisions that revoke a person's right to vote upon incarceration in a federal detention facility or out-of-state facility for conviction of an infamous crime. So now you get to vote while you're in jail. Yeah, can't see that being ripe for fraud. Wait a second. Mike, you've been in here a lot longer than I have. Wasn't it during the Dino Rossi, that whole spectacle that they found like 300 votes in a jail somewhere in the back of somebody's car? I seem to remember something about that. Now they want to legalize it. That's House Bill 1196. Do you see the nonsense that's going on in Olympia? And how many people are even paying attention to this? You know what frustrates me the most? It's like the long-term care tax. What happened was people came up to me and they said, Ari, they're taking money out of my account and I didn't know this. Why are they doing that? I said, did you opt out? Opt out of what? Did you vote against it? Vote against what? I said, clearly you're not a good friend because you're not listening to my show. That was the other thing I said. Because if you listen and if you're educated and if you're informed about what's going on in the Washington legislature, you'll know about these things. But how many people are not paying attention? How many people had no idea who was running for the state legislature this time around? I mean, something we've discussed this before at the KVI election night party, how many people were excited and jumping off the walls. We were excited for a few minutes until the local results started coming in, and we saw how bad it was here. Things may be great in Washington, D.C. They are terrible politically here in Washington state. And it's because not enough people are paying attention. As we say during the election cycle, it's not enough to just vote anymore. You got to be talking to your friends now about this insanity. And you can argue Donald Trump all day long, but you know what? That's not going to get you anywhere. What is going to get you somewhere is talking about these local issues that affect you and your kids directly. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Cody in Grays Harbor. Cody, what's going on?
Hi, Ari. Thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to touch base with you regarding, I was driving through Olympia today, and by the state capitol, I came to a crosswalk, and I noticed there was a demonstration going on, all these anti-Trumpsters, which I'm very pro-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the inauguration in 2016 and all that good stuff. But anyway, there was probably 4 guys and 1 gal dressed in the bottom, or their pants were military fatigues, old school military fatigues, and then they were wearing bulletproof vest. In the car next to me, they went up and started banging on the hood, and the guy was pissed. He was yelling. I just noticed that I had an opening, barely had an opening, and zoomed up next to him because I didn't want to get my car beat on. It's just out of control. These guys, I don't know about these left-wing idiots.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. So when I see people protest from the right, I never see them attacking cars. I never see them blocking traffic. I just see that on the left. This stuff is insane. In fact, there were so many protests going on today. There was one out at the University of Washington where they're mad about all the Gaza stuff. So at the University of Washington, about 100 of them showed up. Most of them aren't even students that are going there. But the left, they're so tolerant, except if you disagree with them, then they beat up on your car. Jonathan Cho and I were actually talking last night, and I was talking to a few other people who cover the protests, and we're all trying to figure out who's going to which one today. Who's going to which one? Because there's so many. There's the ICE one. There's the Olympia one. There's the Gaza one. They're all over the place today. I'm glad you got out of there safely, Cody. Thanks for the update. Thanks for letting us know what's happening. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of Gaza, when we come back, is the Gaza Strip about to be turned into the MAGA Strip? We'll give you all details on what's going on in the Middle East and Trump's plan when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show, my friends. Don't forget that coming up at 5:45 is your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and 2 tickets to Darius Rucker at the Washington State Fair. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, or, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from James in Shelton. James, what's up?
Oh, not much. Just sitting there listening to your show in between the snowstorm, and went out to the doctor and having a cup of coffee, and it infuriates me. The planned obsolescence of our nation, of our children. I mean, every parent should be. This is insane. This is the worst sci-fi novel you've ever read in your life coming through today.
Yeah, because the Democrats view it as they're the resistance. They're fighting back against the Trump administration. And yet, is anything they're doing going to make anybody's life better except for criminals and pedophiles?
No. All it's going to do is roll us into a third world deep state country.
Yep, exactly right.
Take down America. Make no mistake. And I'm all my life in the U.S. military. And then they have born and raised in the Navy. I got a college interest-free loan to go to school. And it was not a rich man. My dad was a chief warrant officer as far as he could go in the Navy. He got me that loan.
Mm-hmm.
I paid it off.
Yep.
I didn't run to Canada. And I know unfortunately got way overeducated. But it doesn't take a genius to figure out what they're doing.
Exactly. And what they're upset about.
Atrocious thing. I'm sponsored by steroids for my lung thing, so I'm a little bit up here.
Well, James, I'll tell you this, okay? You can call me and you can vent to me, or instead call the legislative hotline, 1-800-562-6000. Okay. Yeah. You make sure you call them.
All their numbers.
Yeah, you make sure you call them, my friend.
My sister's a patriot,
Yeah, there you go.
One of them.
You make sure you call every single one of them and melt those phone lines, James.
Parents, they got to go take back their children's rights. They can't take this from us.
Yep.
And this other LBG, all that stuff. Wait till they're 18.
Exactly.
Make their own decisions.
They can make their own decisions. Exactly right. James, appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good hanging out. I've been listening to you since back in the 80s, dude.
Thanks for being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, after Donald Trump made his bombshell announcement about what's going on with the Gaza Strip and how the U.S. is going to take it over yesterday, people went bonkers crazy. Now, here's what he said.
We'll take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job. Do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So you need to break the cycle, and he's 100% right. Let's break this down from the beginning. Every time there's a war, which Hamas starts with Israel, every time, okay, we rebuild Gaza, but they don't actually spend the money on rebuilding Gaza. Instead, what they do is they spend it on terror. They don't give anything to their own population. And then what happens is they decide to start another war when they think they can do it again. It's the same cycle again and again and again, so you need to break the cycle. And Donald Trump thinks outside the box. And he says we're not going to do this time and time again. Now, does this mean Gaza is going to become the 51st state? Or does this mean Donald Trump's going to put a military base there? Or does this mean he's going to bring in private investors who are going to – let me tell you something. All the Arab countries that are freaking out right now, and you haven't heard that many of them freaking out about this right now, even if they're freaking out, you know what they're doing? They're on the phone to the Trump administration saying, how much is the beachfront property going to cost? We want it. It's very valuable land, but the Palestinians, instead of developing that land and turning it into a Singapore or anything else, have decided to turn it into a terror country. And nobody wants the Palestinians. The Palestinians were kicked out of Jordan in 1970 because of terrorism. They took over Lebanon, which was a Christian nation, and turned it into Hezbollah and turned it into a terrorist country. They were kicked out of Kuwait for allying with Saddam Hussein. These are people who, whichever country they go to, they create terror. That's what constantly happens. Israel removed 7,500 of its own citizens from the Gaza Strip to give the entire thing over to the Palestinians. Nobody talks about that, do they? But what happened? The Palestinians? So there were some Jewish Americans who invested millions of dollars in greenhouses so that they would have an agricultural economy to start. You know, Palestinians came right in and tore those things to shred for spare parts, just shredded everything that was there. So you need to break the cycle and you need to start over. But that didn't stop the Democrats from losing their minds, absolutely losing their minds. So Pam Bondi was asked to clarify this today. Not Pam Bondi, excuse me. So Caroline Leavitt was asked to clarify this today in the White House press briefing room. Here's what she said the plan actually means.
On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
Because, as I said yesterday, what this is really about is that this is a negotiating tactic. And what Donald Trump is saying to Hamas, who he still has to get 67 hostages back from, he's saying, I'm prepared to do this. You guys are going to lose everything. Do you want to make a deal on the hostages? Hamas, of course, rejected it outright and said moving all of the Palestinians would be a humanitarian catastrophe. Really? It would be war crimes? Really? What would you call October 7th then? I'm done caring. I'm done caring what Hamas says. Speaking of Hamas, here's what their spokesperson, AOC, said today.
He has previewed this for some time now. Jared Kushner and Donald Trump have kind of floated this for some time. We have known that this is Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. It is horrific. It is the definition of ethnic cleansing. It is part of the culmination of what I view to be genocide of the Palestinian people. And this is genuinely one of the most horrific humanitarian catastrophes that we've seen in modern history.
Funny, didn't hear you say any of that about October 7th. Didn't hear you say that about the Americans who are still being held hostage, or the 44 Americans who were brutally massacred by Hamas. Didn't hear you say that at all. In fact, Democrats have lost their minds so much that Democrat Al Green brought articles of impeachment against Donald Trump for this.
And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. And I rise today, Mr. Speaker, with a to whom it may concern message. To whom it may concern, ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States.
Oh, give me a break. I'm done. I'm done. This isn't going anywhere, this articles of impeachment nonsense, and nobody knew who Al Green was 5 minutes ago. Where were you for October 7th? Where were you for any of this? This is all virtue signaling nonsense, and they're supporting terrorists? Give me a break. Nobody takes any of these people seriously. And where were all of them before? They don't care about the Americans who were killed. They don't care about the American hostages. They just think this will win them points with the left, which is exactly what's going on. When we come back, my friends, lots more to talk about, including the fact that King County Sheriff's Department is now crying poverty, saying they don't have any money, so we need to raise your property taxes. I'll give you details on all this insanity and what they're actually spending the money on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, my friends, you can see this beautiful face and this receding hairline over on our social media channels where we are streaming video of the show every single day. That's over on Facebook, X, and Rumble. You can check it out. In fact, nothing's more extreme than the receding hairline caps that Mike and I got from our friends over at Allied Global Marketing. Is that who that came from today?
That is correct, yes.
From Allied Global Marketing, yes. Apparently, what they are using to promote flight risk is Mark Wahlberg's hairstyle, which is quite something. If you want to see that, head on over to KVI's Twitter account or Facebook account, and you will see the pictures right there because it's me and Mike trying out the new swag we got, right? It's pretty entertaining.
I just love that you called it like I got a giant package on my desk and I open it up and I'm like, ooh, flight risk socks, that's cool. Ooh, flight risk wristbands, oh, that's cool. And I look in there and I just stop. And I was like, it's bald caps, isn't it? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to show you.
It was entertaining walking around the studio today because we have all these glass windows in the studio. So as I go walking by...
it's a real zoo.
Yes, exactly. I'm in my little fishbowl here. As I go walking by our friends over at Northwest News Radio, trying to make them laugh while they're on air wearing those things, that made my day.
That was definitely worth it. We walked into like an intense meeting with Mr. KVI, and it was pretty funny with our nonsense.
Speaking, go ahead.
My ears are very itchy though from all that fake hair. Though.
My head is bothering me because I don't have a lot to protect me from whatever's up there. So yeah, I'll say I'm not too far away from having my own version of Mark Wahlberg's fake hairstyle.
Yeah. Flight Risk is in theaters now.
Exactly.
Take the risk. Y'all want a pilot?
Yeah. Speaking of funny, by the way, TJ says over here on the Warrior Injury Law text line, he says, new gentleman's club called the Gaza Strip. And he says, oh my God, I hear they show ankles. Funny, in The Simpsons, I think it was Sideshow Bob goes wandering into the Gaza Strip Club. So yesterday, everybody was putting up Grok rendered images. That's the Twitter AI that can create images for you. So they're putting up images of the Trump Hotel in Gaza and Disneyland in Gaza. I put a few of them on my social media accounts. But the one that cracked me up was one I didn't end up posting. So what happened was I said, draw for me the MAGA strip. So what did it give me? It gave me what looks like a strip joint, but there's an Israeli and American flag behind the stage, and Donald Trump's dancing on a platform, fully clothed as Donald Trump does, like it's YMCA or something. I should but it's disturbing because you could tell it's not right. You could tell it's AI, but the whole thing's kind of funny. What's not funny is what's happening in King County. So Patty Cole-Tyndall, who's the King County Sheriff, she's a political appointee because for some reason dummy heads in King County decided to give away their voting rights for sheriff and let Dow Constantine pick the sheriff. So Patty Cole-Tyndall is out there saying, we don't have enough money, and if we don't have enough money, then we're going to have to cut services, so we need to raise your property taxes. Okay. There's this awful, awful bill before the Washington State Legislature right now where they want to be able to raise the lid that's on property taxes right now, and they want to be able to increase your property taxes more and more and more every year without actually asking you about it. So your property taxes are about to go through the roof. So now the King County Sheriff is saying, but if you don't increase the property taxes, we're not going to have the money for services. Would you like to know what King County is actually spending the money on? Here we go. This one from Fox 13. King County Metro purchased 120 Tesla Model Ys for their van pool fleet. 120 Teslas. It's not like they got Chevy Volts, something cheap. They went out and got one of the more expensive electric cars for their fleet. So they blew $120,000 on Tesla. This is what you did. It's a necessity, they say. So at what, 60 grand a pop? Okay, let's say they got a discount at 50 grand a pop. You guys bought Teslas for your fleet? That's what you're spending the money on. What else are they spending? Oh, here we go. In Redmond, Washington, the first electric fire truck, $1 million. $1 million. Now, a regular fire truck is about a third of that, maybe a little bit more, depending on what kind of rig you're buying. But they bought an electric fire truck for $1 million. So when they say they need to raise your property taxes, you say, why? So you can buy more Teslas? Why do you need to be buying this stuff? How much other stuff? More needles for the druggies out on the streets? More drug paraphernalia? What other crazy stuff is King County spending the money on? We've been through it. Oh, right, all their climate insanity. So they're going to spend on all this insane stuff, and they're going to tax you for it. And the dummyheads in King County and other counties are going to pay for it as well. They want to make sure they can tax you till the end of time. That's what this is all really about. They don't want it to stop. They just want to keep going and going. They're worse than the Energizer Bunny, my friends. And it's starting to really, really tick me off. I've had enough of this kind of stuff because it affects us. It just makes things more expensive for us. And then they talk about affordability. Oh, it's so unaffordable here. Why do you think that is? When we come back, lots more to discuss, including the latest insanity of what's going on with the people we're deporting from Washington. Yes, these monsters and criminals are the ones that Bob Ferguson and the Democrats want to keep here. I'll tell you who they are when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Have you seen this new trend that's going on out there on social media? People are driving past all these protesters against ICE, and they're blasting that song. It's cracking me up, by the way. It's pretty funny. If I see them here in Seattle, I'm going to roll down the windows of my Dodge Charger and crank it up. Question is if they're going to hear it over the sound of the exhaust system I have in my Charger. Yeah, that's going to be a thing. Either way, they're not going to be happy. I'll promise you that. Yeah, also, thanks to my friends down at Renton Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, who are actually taking care of a few things on my Charger for me in the next couple of weeks. Really do appreciate their service center down there being available when so many other ones are not. They're the only ones I trust to work on my car. But getting back to this ICE business here. So this absolute craziness you have. Let's see who these people are that are being deported in our area. According to the chief border patrol agent here, last night, Sumas border patrol agents arrested Gerardo Sucedo Espinoza and Margarita Rosales Nira near Sumas, Washington. Both were illegally present in the U.S. from Peru and have prior arrests for extortion, grand larceny over $50,000. Sucedo also has a previous arrest for robbery. Guys, this is who is being kicked out of our country. And yet, you have Bob Ferguson, the Democrats, saying they want them to stay. Now, here, according to Como News, we have this article. It's been 2 weeks since federal law enforcement agencies in the Department of Justice were given the green light to enforce immigration laws under Title VIII of the U.S. Code. In that time, agents with the Drug Enforcement Administration have carried out numerous arrests in Western Washington of people in the country illegally. Special Agent in Charge, David Reams, told Como News in an interview we are allowed to directly participate in immigration enforcement where we couldn't before. He heads up the DEA Seattle office, which oversees the DEA's operation in Washington, Idaho, Oregon, and Alaska. Says that a lot of the couriers and drug trafficking organizations are illegally present in the United States. Many of the mid-level and senior leadership of drug trafficking organizations are also illegally present in the United States. DEA Seattle has been sharing their involvement in recent arrests on social media, including a rape suspect who the agency arrested this week in Seattle. He says the focus on fentanyl hasn't changed. What has changed is the immigration authority the DEA now possesses gives us another tool to combat fentanyl traffic. This new authority gives us additional ability to arrest illegal immigrants who are engaged in fentanyl trafficking and other crimes. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officials in Seattle haven't released statistics on how many immigration arrests have taken place since the Trump administration was inaugurated in January with a promise to carry out mass deportations. On Friday, ICE officials said there were 864 arrests nationwide in a single day. ICE has said the agency is taking a worst-first approach with enforcement targeting known criminals for removal. On Tuesday, ICE carried out weekly immigration enforcement flight from the King County International Airport, Boeing Field in Seattle. Como News recorded a video of detainees being taken off the flight Tuesday morning, with a different group of detainees boarding the flight approximately an hour later. ICE officials declined to provide any data on how many people were removed on the enforcement flight or if they were all known offenders with prior criminal records. A spokesperson for the agency said Tuesday's enforcement flight was part of a standard ICE operations which are carried out weekly. ICE officials announced over the weekend the arrest of 4 people in the country illegally with convictions or charges related to sexual assault. And not just sexual assault of adults, but sexual assaults of minors as well. My friends, they are getting rid of the worst of the worst. And you got to ask yourself why the Democrats are objecting to something like that. Because it's absolutely insane that anybody would say any of this is a bad thing. No, these are the kinds of people you want to get out of the country. The criminals, the rapists, the drug dealers, the murderers. Now, a lot of you have said to me, Ari, and I see a lot of you doing this online too. You're tagging the Trump administration, a whole bunch of stuff. No, you know what we need to do? We need to talk to Pam Bondi. Now that Pam Bondi is AG, we need a U.S. attorney here in Western Washington. We need a U.S. attorney who's going to go after the crimes that Seattle, King County, and Washington won't. That is one of the most impactful things, aside from ICE and DEA Seattle, that is one of the most impactful things that we could have, is actually having a U.S. attorney here who enforces the law. You have no idea how much worse it could have been under George Floyd. The U.S. attorney we had back then was helping out with actually prosecuting cases and was saying to the activists, don't you dare open heroin injection sites, because if you do that, You're not going to like what happens next, and held them off for a little while. They started doing it underground and sneakily. Now they're not being sneaky anymore. So because they're not being sneaky anymore, they're out in the open. It would be real easy for a U.S. attorney to come in and shut all that down. That's what we need to happen. Because, my friends, right here, it feels like we're all alone. Things are going so great nationally, but locally in the Washington legislature, they're doubling down on everything. I mean, look, I still haven't heard back from Bob Ferguson's office or the Attorney General's office or Bruce Harrell's office on anything because they don't want transparency for what they're doing. They're not talking to the media. In fact, as we discussed yesterday, there's a memo circulating that shows that Bob Ferguson has consolidated all the media departments of all cabinet level officials to his office because he doesn't want any bad news out there. He just wants to see his name in lights. So anytime King 5 does a puff piece on him or the Seattle Times does a puff piece on him, what do? Share it on social media. That's what he does. Only good news is what he wants. Now, don't forget, during our good news giveaway coming up at 5:45, you can win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and 2 tickets to Darius Rucker at the Washington State Fair. When we come back, though, how much of your tax money is being spent on absolute craziness? We got more details today. We'll give you them when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and 2 tickets to Darius Rucker. But before we get to any of that, the left is so far behind that we've already moved on to the MAGA Strip. We've already moved on to building Trump hotels in Gaza. We've already moved on to, is it going to be the 51st state or not? But they're still protesting what Elon Musk is doing over at USAID. Now, today it was revealed that millions of dollars have been going through subscriptions to agencies to news outlets like Politico, AP, Reuters, even the New York Times. Why is USAID funding the media? Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt laid out a bunch of other insane things they're funding also.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
So the Republicans, or Elon Musk and his DOJ team, found the Democrats' slush fund. They were using USAID to push their radical agenda all over the world. That's what was going on. And they're freaking out about it. That's faux outrage because this money shouldn't be spent on this stupidity. They have no idea what's being spent in these mega omnibus bills that they're passing. And in fact, Caroline Leavitt rightly called it out today.
And I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this. But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California who have lost everything, and in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them. This president will continue to put Americans first, and I think the successes of this week so far speak to that, and it's only Wednesday. So I'll see you guys later this week, and we'll see you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
So that list is actually available online. We read it earlier in the show, and it's insane, the stuff they've been pushing. But when you ask USAID about this, let's remember why this happened. USAID wouldn't turn over any of their documents, wouldn't release any of this because they knew what would happen. It means the Democrats lose their slush fund. When they've been asked about what they're spending money on in the past, they didn't want to answer. Here's Rand Paul asking one of the top administrators of USAID where all the money's been going.
Ms. Powers, did USAID fund coronavirus research in Wuhan, China?
We did not fund gain-of-function research,
That's not the
as
question.
you know.
The question is, did you fund coronavirus research in Wuhan, China?
Before my time, there was the PREDICT program with which you're familiar, which ended in China in 2019.
This is a $200 million program, and the GAO has also identified that some of these grants went directly to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where there is a suspicion that the lab leak began the pandemic. Has USAID awarded funds to the Academy of Military Medical Sciences in China?
Not to my knowledge, but I'd have to get
I think the answer is once again yes. GAO has found that there have been subawards of NIH money as probably as well as USAID money that went to the Academy of not just medical research, military medical research in China. Now, part of the unknowns here is we can't get the records to look at this. So I've been asking for months and months for records. In September of last year, I wrote Ms. Powers, the USAID, a request asking for records from the PREDICT program. These are not classified. These are simply records of scientific research, and we want to read the grants to find out what they were doing and whether the research was dangerous or not. The response I got from your agency was USAID will not be providing any documents at this time. They're just unwilling to give documents on scientific grant proposal. We're paying for it. They're asking for $745 million more in money, and we get no response. So 2 weeks ago, the ranking member, Risch, myself, and 25 other Republican senators, unfortunately, so far, signed a letter once again. It's still no response. We're not asking for classified information. We're not asking for anything unusual. 20 million people died around the world. You're supposed to be an agency that cares about the death of people around the world. We, talk about starvation and famine, and 20 million people died from a virus, and you won't give us the basic information about what grants you're funding around the world and who you're funding.
Gee, I wonder why the funding for that stopped in 2019. What happened in 2019? Because they got busted because your taxpayer dollars were being used to fund that. But a lot of the stuff they're funding is to push their radical leftist ideology. $7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists how to avoid binary gendered language. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. I mean, this list goes on and on of this kind of stuff they're spending the money on. $1.1 million to an Armenian LGBT group. It's nonstop. $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. $2 million to promote LGBT equality through entrepreneurship in Latin America. $3.9 million for LGBT causes in the Western Balkans. $5.5 million for LGBT activism in Uganda. $6 million for advancing LGBT issues in priority countries around the world. This is how they're promoting their agenda all over the place. Now, Donald Trump today signed the No Men and Women's Sports executive order, which fulfilled one of his major campaign promises. He signed the executive order on National Girls and Women in Sports Day, which celebrates female athletes in women's sports and those who are committed to providing equal access to sports for all females. Now, here in Washington, let's not forget, we have the WIA weighing banning men from girls' sports. It's not banning transgender athletes, as everybody in the news likes to say around here. It is saying boys cannot compete in girls' sports, which is the correct thing to make sure it doesn't happen. Because it's girls' sports. We have girls' sports for a reason. I can't believe I've become the resident feminist around here pushing this kind of stuff. But yes, boys should not be competing in girls' sports. Men should not be competing in women's sports. It's dangerous. And just because you can't make it in male athleticism, just because you were a swimmer who was ranked 426 in the country, and then all of a sudden you identify as a female and now you're number one, that does not make you a women's swimmer. I am still not a Jedi Master, as much as I want to be one. I can identify as one as much as I want, but it just ain't going to happen. Now, a lot of people keep saying, Ari, what's going to happen locally with all this stuff? Well, we got a big piece of good news, and it was in the Stranger of all places. Yes, the Seattle Stranger. Now, you have to forgive the language in this because they're mad about it, but we're happy about it. Seattle Children's Hospital postponed a transgender teen's masculinization top surgery. That means a girl having her upper stuff cut off, only hours before it was scheduled, allegedly to comply with one of President Donald Trump's executive orders. I love how they say this, targeting health care access. How is removing parts of your anatomy health care access for trans people under the age of 19? The family says it's unclear if or when the procedure would be rescheduled. According to the family, hospital staff called their 16-year-old son, it's not a son, it's a girl, Monday evening and explained the hospital had postponed her, I'm changing their verbiage here as we go, surgery in accordance with Trump's executive order banning all federal support for gender-affirming, it's not gender-affirming, it's child mutilation, which, among other things, threatens to withhold federal funds from hospitals that provide such care. As well they should. They should not be giving money to hospitals that mutilate children with these life-altering surgeries that can't be undone. The family says they were told during a meeting with the surgical center staff Tuesday morning that if the hospital lost access to those federal funds, other children's care would be at risk, and the decision was made with the entire community's interest in mind. Good. Good. It's about time. Because you know what? You shouldn't have been doing this in the first place. You were doing it because it made you money, not because it was taking care of children. Now, the ACLU and a whole bunch of other leftist organizations have already sued over Trump's order, which they say is dangerous and unconstitutional. And New York State Attorney General Letitia James has warned hospitals that complying with the order may be violating the state anti-discrimination laws. All this is going up to the Supreme Court. All of it is going up. So we know how they're going to rule, hopefully. Now, the stranger gets into the details of this family, which I have serious questions. You're just going to go along with this for your kids, with these parents? What's wrong with these parents? It seems like some parents are just doing it because all their friends' kids have identified as trans, and they just want to be in the in crowd. So they lay out this whole sob story about the hospital calling Ethan. Ethan's not his name. It's a girl. It's a girl who wants to turn into a boy. And they're all lay out this whole sob story about it. You know what? Good. They should be stopping these surgeries. If Ethan, quote unquote, wants to get the surgery when he's 20, 21, whatever, okay, that's his decision. But as a kid, no. No. According to the stranger, the hospital has not publicly stated a new policy on gender-affirming care. However, the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine shows on January 13th, the site did include references to gender affirmation and gender dysphoria. They're no longer on the site. So it looks like they're shutting down all this insanity for good. You know, President Trump was talking about all this stuff today, and he explained exactly why this stuff needs to stop. Why you need to stop letting boys compete in girls' sports. Why all this craziness needs to end. Because it just seems like it just keeps going and going and going, and it needs to stop. It's a great thing that this stuff is all stopped because we've had enough of all this insanity. It's crazy to me that people say, oh, well, you know what? Because a kid identifies a certain way, we're going to cut off parts of their anatomy and give them surgeries that are irreversible, which is absolutely insane, absolutely crazy. No. This stuff needs to stop. So actually, the press secretary today was talking about this. Donald Trump was talking about this. Everybody was talking about this. Here's what Donald Trump had to say.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
Oh, I thought he's a sexist. Oh, I thought he's a misogynist. Donald Trump's turning out to be the biggest feminist on Capitol Hill.
In Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it because when I speak, we speak with authority.
And he's not just talking about this in America. He's talking about no more of this insanity in the Olympics as well.
Marco is going to make clear to the International Olympic Committees there, and he's going to make it as clear as anybody can make it, that America categorically rejects transgender lunacy. We want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics and having to do with this absolutely ridiculous subject that we even have to talk about this subject. If you went back 10 years or 15 years and you would move forward and listen to this, you'd say, what the hell are they talking about? This is impossible. But you have people out there, Democrats, that are still totally in favor. They can't win the argument. They can't win a debate. They look like fools, and they continue to go on.
He's exactly right. He's exactly right. And your taxpayer dollars were funding all this insanity. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Mario in Kent. Mario, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ari, good afternoon. Listen, I just wanted to follow up with what you have mentioned regarding the USAID slush fund. I think you're familiar with that. The Democrats got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, but that slush fund was created basically to destroy countries, and morally and ethically, because if you look at it, some of the funding went to Soros back groups that try to effect elections in like North Macedonia and all that, and they were kicked out of North Macedonia because of that. And I think, that open border society is gotten a lot of funding from the government because George is the puppet master for the Democratic Party. He controls their strings. So how do you destroy a country? You destroy it morally from within. You don't have to bring it invaded or anything. That's what communists do. They basically saw all this chaos and disorder and all that, and then they come in and take over. And after that, they have to execute all the people that created the disorderly, because those people cannot be controlled. And so, sadly, this is what has led to all this moral decay in the United States, where you have the bad guys looking like the good guys and the law-abiding guys looking like the bad guys. And that's really been the whole goal of this USAID.
Mario, I'll give you a little religious stuff here for a second. I know you like this kind of stuff. So there's an idea that comes that says in Judaism that the Messiah comes when the world is backwards, when up is down, when black is white, when left is right, dogs and cats sleeping together, mass hysteria. So are we living in messianic times? Are we living in the times before that? I think it just shows that things are actually going in the right direction. You're 100% right. Why did Rome fall? Rome fell from within, not from exterior, because of things like this. Mario, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the latest from the Middle East. Are we going to get Mara Gaza? That sounds like a lot of fun to me. But before we get to any of that, time for Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI so you can win that $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and two tickets to Darius Rucker at the Washington State Fair, plus so much more. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. And while you're there, rate and share with your friends. Joy Reid yesterday, after Donald Trump's bombshell announcement that the U.S. is going to be taking over the Gaza Strip, came up with some very, very interesting fan fiction about what's going on in the Middle East.
It is so stunning that it's kind of hard to react to it. I mean, the idea that the people who live in Gaza, for the most part, came from the West Bank, and they are not there willingly. They were there in what in the region is called the Nakba. They were pushed out.
Okay, crazy lady. Can we stop right there? Literally everything you said is wrong. Literally every single thing you said is wrong. Most of the Palestinians came from the Arabian Peninsula. The ones who are living in Gaza right now are the ones who went there after Israel gave them the territory because they wanted it in 2005 and 2006. What the hell are you talking about? And in fact, some of the leaders of the Palestinians are Egyptian. Yasser Arafat was Egyptian. These guys do not come from Gaza. So can we stop with this nonsense? She has no idea what she is talking about. And the hot takes on social media were really, really a lot of fun. I mean, here's one for you. So the Palestinian Authority gave a response to Donald Trump saying that the U.S. is going to take over Gaza. Really? It's more like, yeah, try and stop us. If he wants to build Mar-a Gaza or Disney Gaza or Trump Hotel and Casino of Gaza City, you're not going to be able to stop him. Here's what the Palestinian Authority said.
Our country and our home is the Gaza Strip.
Hang on. So if you say that, that means you're not refugees anymore. So if that's your home, then you're not refugees anymore. So why do you have refugee status for 80 years? 80 years. Let's be clear. Donald Trump saying that the U.S. is going to take over the Gaza Strip may be a negotiating tool, may not be a negotiating tool. Either way, it's a lot of fun because a lot of us have discussed this before. Why do you get to keep a state when you lose a war you started? You don't get to be in charge anymore. And here's a hard thing. You know, yesterday we were discussing the denazification of Germany and how you have to do that to Gaza. But there's a few differences between the two. Number one, the Germans said they were defeated. They felt defeated. They said, well, Hitler's dead and all these other guys fled to Argentina. You left us behind. They were willing to go along with it to get their lives back. The Palestinians come out of the rubble for hostage releases and say, we won. We won. Everything's destroyed around us, but we won. We're victorious. We beat Israel. So that's the society you're dealing with. You were also able to create some fan fiction for the Germans. The myth of the good German soldier. It's just that, a myth. Oh, no. We didn't participate in any of that. No. We were in POW camps. That way they could go home with a little bit of dignity and forget about the atrocities they did and people could move on. The Oslo Accords in the 90s, when they signed the last peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, we knew it wasn't going to work then. I remember at my bar mitzvah, actually. At my bar mitzvah, a friend of my father's, who's a rabbi, was going to be speaking, and he wanted to get to know me a little bit more. Hadn't really seen me since I was a little kid. And he said, well, how do you feel about the peace agreements? And I told him I thought it was stupid. Why are we doing another one that's not going to work? I said that at the ripe old age of 13, my friends, and nothing has changed since then. Oslo. The Palestinians were supposed to educate their children towards peace. And instead, the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority, and UNRWA educated them to kill Jews, educated them to hate Jews. For the past 30 years, we've been living under Oslo, and it's been a complete disaster, a complete failure. There's a song that used to get played more in Jewish circles. It's a combination of Hebrew and Arabic, Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam salam salam, which is, peace to all of us in Arabic and Hebrew. And I hated it because I go, we may be singing that. They're not singing that. They're singing death to the infidel. They're singing from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So what right does Israel and the U.S. have to take this land? We won a war we didn't start. Palestinians claimed Gaza is an open-air prison. Then you know what? They should be excited to leave. And the same people who are yelling about 1.7 million Palestinians being moved out of a bombed-out wasteland are the same people who want to kick out over 7 million Jews. They're also the same people that cheered when 7,500 Jews were forced out of their homes in Gaza to give the land to the Palestinians for a state 20 years ago. For the last 15 months, Hamasniks have screamed that they want the Jews to go back to Europe, and now they're claiming that ordering people to relocate is absolutely unacceptable. The Palestinians started a war. They lost. This all could have been avoided if they have kept the ceasefire. Instead, they raped, kidnapped, tortured, and murdered with glee and broadcast it for the entire world to see. President Donald Trump saw the October 7th footage yesterday, and now obviously feels the way every person with a soul felt after seeing the October 7th atrocities. We all want to kick out every Palestinian after seeing our brothers and sisters brutalized. President Trump is making it a reality. The Palestinians found out that when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That's exactly what happened, and the left is losing their minds over it. Here's AOC.
And he has previewed this for some time now. Jared Kushner and Donald Trump have kind of floated this for some time. We have known that this is Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. It is horrific. It is the definition of ethnic cleansing. It is part of the culmination of what I view to be genocide of the Palestinian people. And this is genuinely one of the most horrific humanitarian catastrophes that we've seen in modern history.
Humanitarian catastrophes, horrific, ethnic cleansing. Didn't hear you use any of those words to describe October 7th. Instead, you supported the people who carried it out. You and your squad buddies never talk like that about what happened on October 7th. Instead, you supported the people who carried it out. I don't want to hear from you. You're not a serious person. Hamas responded to Trump's proposal, and they called it a crime against humanity. Really? Hamas is going to lecture anybody on what a crime against humanity is. Spare us. We don't care. We're done listening to you. There's something that my detractors on social media like to repost, and they don't understand that I stand by every word I said, to quote Ben Shapiro when he was testifying in front of Eric Swalwell when he started holding up screenshots about things he had said. Yes, I agree with me. So what happened was I posted, shortly after October 7th, a picture of a Lego set that's just a pile of bricks, and it says, coming soon, the Gaza playset. You know what? I stand by every single word. People who do what the Palestinians did, and now you say, oh, well, there's the innocent Palestinians. Really? Got a question for you. How many of them were holding hostages in their homes and their apartments? Because when Bibi Netanyahu and Israel offered $5 million and free passage out of Gaza to anybody who would turn an Israeli hostage, nobody took them up on it. Instead, they went on TV at those hostage releases and bragged about keeping them in their homes. This is a death cult that has been brainwashed. And now the press secretary made it very, very clear what Donald Trump actually meant by what he said yesterday.
On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
She's right. And here's something else, by the way. Regardless of what happens to Gaza, they are still holding 4 U.S. hostages. They still killed 44 Americans. You don't get to keep your country after that. You don't get to do that. What, you think the U.S. just left Germany? We still have a base in Germany. We still have a base in Japan. We are still guarding the Korean border. You don't get to keep your country after what you did to Americans. Absolutely not. When we come back, my friends, your tax dollars here in Washington were supposed to be going to fix roads and bridges, and instead it's going to address climate change. Representative Andrew Barkis joins us when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, things may be peachy in Washington, D.C., but they're absolutely miserable in Washington state. The legislature is completely out of control. The Republicans are fighting back against the Democrat insanity, but it shows no end in sight. And the Democrats, in the process of pushing through their radical agenda, are exposing their own lies and hypocrisy. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is Representative Andrew Barkis from Olympia. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be on with you again, Ari. Always a pleasure to talk to you about the fun stuff happening under the dome here in Olympia.
Oh, yes. So much fun. So let's break it down right away. So the Climate Commitment Act, that was Jay Inslee's baby, talking about how he was going to tax us only pennies, which turned out to be a lot more than pennies, for saving the climate, which isn't actually going to save the climate, but telling us about how this was going to invest in green energy and roads and bridges, and if you didn't pass it, they were going to take away money from roads and bridges. But from what I hear, they're doing that anyway. What's going on?
Well, before, did you see that Redmond took delivery of their $1 million electric fire truck?
I did see that. I saw the $1 million fire truck.
God.
Well, I thought to myself, I wonder if this is going to be like Kamala Harris's school buses, which are in Kent, which are quadruple the price and haven't run because they're missing pieces.
Yeah. Well, so the Climate Commitment Act, we fought this. We knew it was going to be a tax. They said it's not going to be a tax. We know this is revenue coming into the state. It does come into the state transportation budget. As we said, I'm a ranking member in transportation. I write the budget every year. But, the big thing is we pushed the initiative to repeal it, and the big campaign against it, which they were successful after spending about $20 million. They told everybody that, if we took this money away, this revenue source for transportation, we couldn't fix anything like roads and bridges and all the things that we need in Washington state with a failing infrastructure. Well, the challenge is now, Ari, is that I'm trying to do a budget that has $1 billion hole in it due to ever-increasing costs of these projects. Think 520, 405, all the great things around Puget Sound. And I can't use that climate commitment money because it can only be used for things like electric fire trucks and transit and those things. So I've got a bill right now, Ari, and what it does is it changes the criteria by which the funds can be used. It also taps into if we do have an extra amount that comes in through the auction. And it is important. It's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue that we could be using for transportation to balance our budget without raising taxes or additional revenue. And the frustrating thing is that if we don't find these other revenues, then all these projects, all these things that we've been working so on, they're gone. They get paused, they get pushed out into, never land, and that will create even more problems for the people of Washington state.
So here's something I don't get. They had promised us, oh, no, if you defund this, if you take it away, we're not going to have money for roads and bridges, and now you're telling me it wasn't even going to that in the first place.
Well, it goes to, it does go to some things. I mean, it goes to a myriad of things that they claim, has a tie-in or a nexus with carbon reduction. So the electric fire truck, the electric buses, transit, bike and ped paths, active transportation. But it's restrictive. So you've got money going into things that I'm not saying are bad, but are they the priorities of Washington state? And when we have a failing system, when we have projects that need to be finished, we have maintenance that's, by some accounts, they say it's $1 billion backlog of maintenance. I mean, just drive down the freeway, Ari. I mean, I keep driving by areas where guardrails have been damaged for maybe a year, right? I mean, there's crap all over the freeway, and there's a lot of different things that the maintenance and preservation, which is so important, but yet that money, what we only have is traditional sources, multimodal, which is all your fees, and then, of course, the gas tax, which is the original gas tax, that goes to roads and projects, and that is, it is a declining, it's not enough revenue to take care of all the increasing expenses. So it's a natural thing to say, hey, let's use the funds. That is a revenue source for transportation. And, oh, by the way, you just got done telling everybody that we're going to use these funds for transportation.
Exactly. It's absolutely crazy that you have to fight for this. So the bill number is 1324, and you want to call the Washington State Legislature and you want to say yes to 1324. You want to make sure that they're doing this and changing this, and their number is 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. Now, speaking of roads and bridges, you also have another bill out there where it's talking about making sure these Hamasniks and other Looney Tunes aren't blocking freeways anymore. You tried this last year. What's your hope that's going to get across this time?
About the same. I mean, again, I started saying, how do I feel? How do you feel? People ask me, how you doing, Andrew? How you feel? Man, this is a tough session already, 4 weeks in, and it's going to get worse. We're doing the same things we've been doing. decriminalizing, changing processes, going back on deals that were made on policy. So the likelihood of this even getting a hearing is slim to none. It's a bipartisan bill. Democrats signed on to it, common sense bill, and it increases the penalties, of course, for this act that is illegal already, but not being enforced. So you need bigger consequences. You need bigger penalties, and maybe they'll stop doing it. You know, it's interesting. I'm really surprised at when we saw the transition with the president. I'm really surprised we didn't see him back on the freeway. And now with all the immigration, it's just a matter of time. You just saw this in Los Angeles. You saw this in other areas where they were blocking the freeway, shutting things down. They'll do it again in Seattle. Somebody's going to get hurt or worse, and it is illegal. There are other ways that you can do your protests legally. So I'm pushing. You know, I've had massive comments on this. We put a post out just to let people know that this bill was coming back. It was one of the most liked and shared and everything. I mean, people it resonates with the people of Washington, right? Mm-hmm. They're saying, yeah, we need to have stronger penalties. We need to keep people off our freeways. And so I wish the majority would listen to the people, and they would actually look at this and go, yeah, we need to make these changes. But not only in this piece of policy, but so many others that we're seeing this legislative session.
Well, the thing that I saw is one of the rookie legislators, Sean Scott, is the one who's actually getting people all ticked off about this, saying it's our right to protest on I-5. And I'm reading this and going, this is what happens when you elect a socialist from Seattle. You get this kind of insane insanity when they're advocating for it, especially after two of his own activists were killed during the BLM riots by marching on the freeway. Or one of them was killed, one of them was horribly injured.
Horribly injured, yeah. And, you know, somebody clipped that over to me right away and said, hey, one of your colleagues likes your bill. So it's like, and it got it out there more, you know, it's just, but it's a classic example, and it is a really clear example of the difference between the majority and the minority in the House, and what we're seeing with more and more within their membership of their caucus on these type of policies. And when you have these pressures from these type of members, you know, you're going to see policy come out this way. And there are a lot of new people holding gavels down here, Ari, and in those important committees. And that's how these policies get out. They're going to get to the floor, you know, and then we're going to have to do everything we can to try to stop them. And, of course, the good stuff, like my bill that I put forth and many others, like the graffiti bill again, I'm running that one again, they probably won't see the light of day.
Which is beyond crazy. Representative Andrew Barkis from Olympia, thank you so much for fighting for all of us, even though sometimes I know it feels like you're banging your head against a wall.
You bet, Ari, and thanks for carrying the message out there to all your great listeners, and we appreciate it very much.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss, including your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you, my friends. So this one comes to us right here from Linwood, Washington. Yesterday, we saw the return of Juan and Julio, the missing stolen donkeys. Well, here, Booberry Matcha, an 11-week-old kitten who was stolen from a Linwood adoption room, has been safely returned to the rescue thanks to an outpouring of community support. Whiskers in Need, otherwise known as WIN, the nonprofit organization that manages the adoption room at the Linwood PetSmart, announced the initial theft of their Cats of Linwood on their Cats of Linwood PS Instagram page. Whiskers in Need is partnered with Adams County Pet Rescue to provide a safe space for rescued cats to live and meet potential adopters at the PetSmart. The organization said some nice young man stole the kitten. That's you're not a nice young man if you stole a kitten. I know you're trying to be nice and all, but come on. In the time it took for a volunteer to turn away to get an adoption application for them, Wynn said the men apparently stuffed the kitten in a jacket. They could have just adopted the cat, by the way. Booberry was described as the absolute sweetest, most cuddly, most people-oriented kitten you could ever meet by Wynn. The kitten was 11 weeks old and had never been away from his siblings. We can only hope that they treat him well, the post continued. The kitten was taken on Tuesday night, but thankfully, less than 24 hours later, Booberry Matcha was reunited with his siblings. Wynn said his swift return was facilitated by the Linwood Police Department, which acted on tips from the public after the story was widely shared on social media and local television. Does that mean they arrested somebody? They're trying to make this all sound like too good to be true, but it sounds like they arrested these guys. We are overjoyed and so relieved to have Booberry back with us, said Sue Masser, founder of Whiskers in Need. We can't thank the community enough for sharing the story and helping bring him home so quickly. Your support has been a true lifeline, and we are grateful beyond words to everyone who helped spread the word. Masser added that the organization's volunteers will ensure Booberry Matcha receives plenty of snuggles, treats, and time with his siblings as they recover from the ordeal. That's a nice one. Here's one of these coincidental ones. These stories kind of freak me out, but listen to this one. From Fox News, American figure skater John Maravilla set the record straight on a story that went viral amid the airline disaster that occurred near Reagan International Airport last week. Maravilla told the Daily Beast in an interview on Thursday he was denied from his flight because of his dog, but he was set to fly out of Detroit, not Wichita, Kansas, where the doomed flight originated from. Media reports from Russia originally claimed he was supposed to be on the plane, pointing to Instagram posts from his personal account. He told the outlet it was unclear where the reports came from, but he was heartbroken over the fate of some of his friends. He says, "I still can't believe it. I was just with them, watching them have a lot of fun and enjoying their time." He added that he was in a parking lot when he started to learn the flight had collided with the U.S. Army helicopter. This reminded me of the, oh man, my brain's going blank here. Family Guy. What's the Family Guy's comedian's name? The main guy, Ted. Seth MacFarlane. Thank you, Mike. Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane was supposed to be on one of the 9/11 flights. Did you know that? He talks about it from time to time in some of his comedy stuff, but he was supposed to be on one of those flights, and he missed them. These coincidental stories give me the willies, by the way. There's also this one here. Labor and delivery nurses at Multicare Good Samaritan Hospital in Puyallup are overwhelmed with gratitude after the community donated nearly 800 teddy bears. Now, the bears serve kind of a dark but important purpose, to help grieving families experiencing infant loss feel supported and loved. They say it's very common, unfortunately, to have a loss or a miscarriage, but the nurses here do not want families experiencing loss to feel alone, so they decide to create teddies for tinies, and they give them a teddy bear. Although it's not their baby, it's something we can give them to have remembrance of such a dark time that took place in their lives, but also give them a little bit of hope. So it's nice that people are giving to this very, very important cause. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union, with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to Successful Retirement, plus the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit MadronaFinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away two tickets to Darius Rucker at the Washington State Fair on September 21st. Hootie! Or is he actually Hootie, or is it just Hootie and the Blowfish? Darius Rucker himself is coming to the Washington State Fair on September 21st. Now, bonus for KVI listeners, you can get your pre-sale tickets right now using the password radio at thefair.com. That's right. You can get the tickets before anybody else by going to thefair.com and using the password radio. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement, and 2 tickets to Darius Rucker at the Washington State Fair on September 21st. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And remember, you can get your pre-sale tickets now to see Darius Rucker using the password radio at thefair.com. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.